Hello, this is Kerry Griffiths, the Divorce Financial Planner, and today I'm building on what we talked about yesterday in terms of pension sharing on divorce. A little bit more detail, and you probably should expect that of me because pensions would be my black chair subject. So really passionate about them. And the reason that I think that they're so important when we're talking about divorce is there's so many times that they just aren't brought to the table when people are getting divorced without using a solicitor. So Age UK did a report last year, and in that report, about around 70, I think it was 71% of people didn't even discuss pensions on divorce. Now, the chances are the majority of those were people who hadn't used a solicitor because a solicitor will always discuss pensions on divorce. But it could also be that those people who were interviewed potentially used offsetting. So it wouldn't be so obvious that actually pensions had formed part of your divorce. So you might recall yesterday I talked about offsetting being where you don't necessarily get a part of your former spouse's pension, you might keep more of the other assets that offset that value. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about why we don't talk about pensions, some of the emotions that go with them, and just a little bit of knowledge and information around kind of the expectation of what that could be. So in my experience, the women I work with, there's a lot of guilt that's associated with discussions around pensions, particularly if they are the one who potentially is going to receive part of their former spouse's pension. Now, that's sometimes internal. There's some guilt maybe around if she was the one who ended the marriage, but it can also come where there are teenage children involved as well, or just children who are able to vocalise their thoughts around things, because quite often the language that I hear used is she's after my pension, she's trying to get my pension, and that can sometimes come from the dad. It can sometimes come from others' perceptions, and certainly it feeds into the way that a lot of women feel about the discussion around their former spouse's pension. And that leads to women often feeling guilty and greedy. And what I want to make really, really clear is this isn't about being greedy. The courts won't allow you to be greedy. It's about being equitable. And there are a lot of things that women don't take into consideration when they think about their life journey and their marriage that actually impact and that the courts would take into account. So when you get divorced, what you contribute to the marriage in terms of money and assets is also complemented by what you contribute in terms of other things. So if you took time out of a career to have children, maybe you went part-time, if you step back to support your husband with a really successful career, all of these things are things that the women I work with often do. So the journey or the trajectory that your career would have gone on has potentially changed as a choice you and your husband made as part of the marriage. Now, because that trajectory changed, that has had a financial impact on what your income looks like in retirement. And the court will look for parity to make sure that what you're going to receive is equitable, and that contribution that you made to the marriage, because they would consider a contribution that you took time out of your career, maybe you stopped your career altogether, maybe you went part-time, all of those factors are considered as a contribution to the marriage. So they would be calculated, and what the court is looking for is to determine an income in retirement that would be fair. Now, a really interesting way to also think about this is, let's imagine they decided that the income that was going to be fair in retirement was £10,000 per year. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, and let's say actually, that doesn't necessarily mean that you would get half of his pension pot to make that £10,000. Actually, what they might decide is that because you're younger and because you're going to live longer because you're a woman, you might actually end up with 60% of his pension pot, because actually you need an awful lot more to be able to sustain £10,000 a year when you get to retirement. So just to go back over that again, it might be that the courts decide that £10,000 a year is the right level of income. That would be an equitable solution. But because you're younger and because you're going to live longer, you would need more than 50% of its pension pot to receive that. So it isn't about 50-50. Actually, 50-50 is a starting point, and then they look at all the other factors to see where that parity would come from. And there, I suppose that kind of goes into the fact that there is no one size fits all. It's very much around discretion and individual circumstances. So my message to you today is there should be no guilt whatsoever. This isn't about you being greedy. This is about you really clearly understanding what your retirement income looks like. And please don't rush. The amount of women that I speak to who just wanted the divorce done. They make a settlement because they just wanted to draw a line under it. And that is completely understandable. But please don't make a decision today that the future you will regret. So no regrets. So I encourage you to make sure that you're at least discussing pensions, and I really encourage you to get a pension sharing report so that you can understand, and your solicitor will organise that for you so that that clarity is absolutely there. Okay, so that's Kerry Griffiths. Hope that was really useful today. Divorce financial planner, and look forward to speaking again to you soon. Bye.